What if Queen Amidala never trusted the Jedi? The Trade Federation's blockade had turned deadly. Queen Amidala stood in her throne room as Captain Panaka burst through the doors, two robed strangers behind him. The taller one stepped forward with that unmistakable Jedi confidence. Qui-Gon Jinn spoke with absolute certainty. They would escort her to Coruscant immediately. The Senate would resolve this crisis through proper diplomatic channels. His voice carried that familiar tone every Jedi used, the assumption that questioning their wisdom was simply unthinkable. And for a moment, Queen Amidala felt the familiar pull to comply. Every citizen of the Republic had been conditioned from birth to trust Jedi guidance without question. They were the guardians of peace, the servants of the Force, the wise protectors who always knew best. But then, something clicked in her mind. She looked at this stranger who had appeared during her planet's darkest hour. He spoke like he expected her to follow blindly, just like every other ruler in the galaxy always did. Captain Panaka noticed the change first. After years of service, he recognized that look. His queen was thinking, calculating, questioning, and she was about to shock everyone in the room. "I will not be going to Coruscant," Queen Amidala said, her voice cutting through Qui-Gon's confident explanation like a blade. "Not immediately, not without a better plan." The words hit like a thunderbolt. Qui-Gon's mouth opened slightly, his certainty cracking for the first time in decades. No one questioned Jedi guidance. It simply wasn't done. For 1,000 generations, the Republic had trusted their wisdom without hesitation. But this 14-year-old queen had just shattered that tradition with a single sentence. Every thought in her mind cut to the heart of the problem. While senators debated trade regulations on Coruscant, her people would suffer under droid occupation. The Trade Federation's blockade would tighten its grip. Naboo would become a corporate slave state. She needed allies who could act, not politicians who would argue for months. Qui-Gon tried to recover, stumbling over words about destiny and the Force's guidance. But Queen Amidala was no longer listening to mystical explanations. She was thinking like a military commander, not a diplomatic pawn. And that shift in her made the room feel electric. Around them, the tension was palpable. Panaka's hand drifted to his weapon, instinctive but hesitant. For the first time in his career, he watched someone openly defy Jedi orders. It was like witnessing a quiet revolution, and he knew one thing for certain. His queen was choosing her own path, and he would follow her anywhere, no matter what. The ship lifted off as explosions rocked the palace below. Qui-Gon moved toward the cockpit to give navigational instructions, but Queen Amidala's voice stopped him cold. She had already chosen their destination. Ryloth. Not Coruscant with its gleaming Senate chambers, not some neutral system for hiding. Ryloth, the Twi'lek homeworld scarred by centuries of oppression. Qui-Gon's confusion deepened into something approaching panic. This wasn't how the Force worked. This wasn't how destiny unfolded. He had seen visions of Coruscant, of Senate chambers and Jedi Councils. Now those visions were crumbling like sand through his fingers. Queen Amidala explained her choice with cold precision. The Twi'leks had battled slavers, corporate exploiters, and military occupiers for generations. They had developed tactics that Republic military academies never taught. More importantly, they had something Naboo desperately needed. A proven network of resistance fighters who knew how to hurt powerful enemies. The hyperdrive engaged, carrying them away from the Republic's heart toward an uncertain alliance that would change galactic history. Ryloth's surface told stories of endless struggle. Scarred mountains and abandoned cities marked where countless battles had been fought against oppression. Queen Amidala's ship landed in a hidden valley, shielded from Trade Federation sensors by natural rock formations. During the journey, she had studied intelligence reports about the planet's most famous resistance leader. Cham Syndulla was already a legend among freedom fighters across the Outer Rim. He had spent decades perfecting guerrilla warfare against enemies with superior firepower and resources. When her encrypted message reached him, Cham was intrigued. A monarch who refused to follow Jedi advice? That was unprecedented in galactic history. That kind of independent thinking was exactly what resistance movements needed. They met in an abandoned mineshaft deep underground where no surveillance could penetrate. Cham studied the young queen with a calculating gaze. He had expected another privileged royal begging for help. Instead, Queen Amidala spoke like someone who understood warfare. She offered partnership, not charity. Mutual support, not desperate pleading. Captain Panaka spread tactical displays across a makeshift table. The Trade Federation's droid army was impressive in open battle, but vulnerable to sabotage and hit-and-run attacks. Their blockade controlled major hyperspace routes, but couldn't monitor every smuggling path. Most crucially, their invasion violated multiple Republic laws, creating potential diplomatic leverage. Cham's weathered face broke into a rare smile. This was strategic thinking that could actually win wars. He agreed to help, with one condition. They would fight this war his way, using proven resistance tactics, not Republic military doctrine. Qui-Gon watched the negotiations with growing horror. Everything was spiraling beyond his understanding. The Force had shown him clear visions of Coruscant, of Senate hearings, and political solutions. Those visions were becoming meaningless as the Queen forged an entirely different path. He made one final attempt to restore order. The Jedi Council could mobilize Republic forces. Chancellor Valorum would listen to their recommendations. The Senate had resources these rebels could never match. But Queen Amidala had lost all faith in institutional responses. Her people were dying while bureaucrats debated procedure. She needed action, not promises. The plan they developed was elegantly simple. Cham's network would smuggle strike teams onto Naboo using routes the Trade Federation had never discovered. These fighters would coordinate with local resistance cells to systematically sabotage critical infrastructure. Meanwhile, Queen Amidala would rally support from other systems that had suffered under Trade Federation exploitation. It was asymmetric warfare on a galactic scale, and it represented everything the Jedi Order feared about independent action. Within 72 hours, the first phase began. Twi'lek commandos infiltrated Naboo's occupied territories like ghosts. They moved through swamps and forests that confounded Trade Federation sensors, striking at communication hubs and droid patrol stations before vanishing completely. Back on Ryloth, Queen Amidala had transformed into something unexpected, a military strategist. She studied battle reports with the intensity of a career general, coordinating simultaneous operations across multiple star systems. Her message to potential allies was devastatingly effective. The Trade Federation's aggression against Naboo was merely a test case for future corporate military actions. The response exceeded every projection. Systems throughout the Outer Rim began providing covert support. Ships arrived under false transponder codes. Weapons shipments appeared in hidden caches. Intelligence networks shared crucial data about Trade Federation operations. Qui-Gon found himself increasingly isolated. His connection to the Force felt clouded, his certainty replaced by disturbing doubt. Everything he believed about destiny and natural order was collapsing. The Queen's rebellion was succeeding precisely because it ignored traditional Jedi wisdom. Then came the strategic breakthrough. Resistance forces captured a Trade Federation communications facility on Naboo's northern continent. The intelligence they discovered revealed the true scope of corporate planning. Naboo's invasion was a prototype for systematic military action against any system that opposed Trade Federation expansion. Armed with this explosive evidence, Queen Amidala finally contacted the Republic's Senate, but she approached them as a conqueror, not a victim. Her resistance network controlled significant territory on Naboo and had disrupted Trade Federation operations across an entire sector. She wasn't requesting assistance, she was demanding justice with military success backing her words. The Senate chambers erupted in unprecedented chaos. Conservative senators denounced her tactics while others praised her results. But none could ignore the documented evidence of Trade Federation war crimes that her forces had gathered. Chancellor Valorum faced an impossible crisis. This teenage queen had achieved through coordinated violence what months of diplomacy had failed to accomplish. The Trade Federation's blockade was crumbling, their droid armies were retreating, and their corporate leadership faced serious criminal charges. But she had accomplished everything by rejecting Republic authority and Jedi guidance. Now, with momentum building across the galaxy and resistance cells coordinating their attacks, the time had come for the decisive push. Weeks of careful preparation had weakened the Trade Federation's grip on Naboo. Their communication networks were in shambles, their supply lines had been systematically disrupted. Droid patrols moved cautiously through territories they once controlled with confidence. Queen Amidala knew this was her moment. Standing in the command center they had established on Ryloth, she watched as real-time intelligence flowed in from across Naboo. Every resistance cell was in position. Every strike team had confirmed their targets. The Twi'lek fighters had infiltrated key positions throughout the occupation force. She gave the signal, and the galaxy witnessed something extraordinary unfold. The final battle for Naboo was unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed in living memory. Victory came through perfectly coordinated strikes by small, mobile units. Twi'lek fighters and Naboo resistance cells worked in flawless synchronization to systematically dismantle the Trade Federation's occupation infrastructure. When the last droid control ship crashed into Naboo's oceans, Queen Amidala stood triumphant in her reclaimed throne room. But her victory represented something far more significant than planetary liberation. She had proven that the galaxy didn't need to wait for Republic bureaucracy or Jedi wisdom to solve critical problems. Captain Panaka watched his queen address the celebrating crowds below and felt pride beyond anything in his military career. His decision to trust her judgment over Jedi orders had been vindicated completely. Sometimes the best path forward was the one that conventional wisdom declared impossible. As for Qui-Gon Jinn, he departed Naboo as a changed man. His absolute faith in Jedi infallibility had been shattered by a teenage queen who dared to question their authority. He would return to Coruscant carrying uncomfortable questions about the Order's assumed role in galactic affairs. Perhaps Count Dooku had been right about the Jedi living in a shared delusion. Queen Amidala's successful rebellion created ripples that spread across the galaxy for decades. Other systems began questioning why they should automatically defer to Jedi guidance or Republic authority. The resistance network she had forged didn't dissolve after victory. It evolved into a new model of galactic cooperation based on mutual aid rather than hierarchical control. The Trade Federation never recovered from their catastrophic defeat. Their corporate empire crumbled as system after system rose up against economic exploitation, inspired directly by Queen Amidala's example. The galaxy learned that ordinary citizens, working together strategically, could achieve what mighty institutions claimed was impossible. Sometimes the wisest choice is trusting your own judgment, even when everyone else insists you're wrong. Queen Amidala had saved her world not by following the prescribed Jedi path, but by forging something entirely new. In this timeline, there would be no Chosen One discovered on desert worlds, no secret Sith apprentices gathering power in shadows. Instead, something potentially more dangerous to the established order had emerged, a queen who proved that the Jedi weren't always right, and that the galaxy didn't need their permission to change. That single moment when Queen Amidala questioned Qui-Gon Jinn's authority had shattered a 1,000-year-old assumption. In its place, a new reality began taking shape, one where the Force served the people, not the institutions that claimed to understand it. One act of defiance had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same.